Welcome to the 9th Annual Page Center Awards. My name is Jonathan McVeary, and I am the Page Center Communications Manager. We are a research center that is part of the Donald P. Belisario College of Communications at Penn State. Joining me here on stage is Denise Bortry, the director of the Page Center, who also happens to be the interim dean of the Belisario College. Denise?
Hi everyone, it's my great honor to welcome you to this annual celebration of integrity in public communication. During the program, we will meet exceptional leaders representing key fields of communication. We've asked them to participate for a few reasons: to honor their work, to share the values, principles, and lessons that have guided their careers, and to connect their stories and insights to the work we do here at the Page Center. We believe their successes will inspire professional communicators and students to act with integrity and in the best interest of society.
Since 2017, the Page Center has recognized 25 of the biggest names in business, journalism, public relations, and public service with the Larry Foster Award for Integrity in Public Communication. Larry Foster was the longtime chief of public relations at Johnson & Johnson. He and his wife, Ellen, both Penn State graduates, endowed the center with help from friends and colleagues. Larry's vision is being realized here at the Page Center through research by leading academics in relevant topics like AI, managing crisis and risk, pro-social communications, stakeholder relationships, and more, as well as a hugely popular ethics training program. You can learn about our ethics training modules, including special lessons focused on this awards program, at the bottom of this event's watch page and the Page Center website.
This year, we've added 4 more names to our impressive group of Larry Foster Award recipients. Kelli Parsons, CEO of the Avoq agency; Jeffrey Goldberg, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic; Hubert Joly of Harvard Business School and former CEO of Best Buy; and Kaitlan Collins, chief White House correspondent and anchor at CNN. Honorees are nominated and chosen by members of the Page Center Advisory Board. We are grateful for all the work our board does for this event and throughout the year.
New this year, we are coming to you live from Penn State's University Park campus. We are in the beautiful Belisario Media Center with some future Larry Fosters right now, ready to watch the show. Thank you all for being here. In a little bit, we'll meet Page Center intern Grace Matthews, who will be interviewing students in the crowd to capture their thoughts and takeaways. But first, Denise is going to kick off tonight with a tribute to a special person who we lost this year.
Thank you, Jonathan. Tonight is not just about celebrating our honorees. It's also about remembering someone who has been the North Star of the Page Center Board for over a decade. This past January, our beloved chair, Bill Nielsen, passed away. Bill was a longtime CCO of Johnson & Johnson and a respected leader and mentor in the field. But more than anything, he was a tireless advocate for ethical communication. Many of you watching knew Bill, but for those who didn't, we hope this video demonstrates how important Bill was to not just the center, but the entire public relations industry and beyond. You'll see why he's considered a legend and a true icon of integrity in our field.
I'm Bill Nielsen, and it is my great honor and privilege to serve as chairman of the advisory board of the Arthur W. Page Center for Integrity in Public Communication.
I was named the director of the Page Center in 2014, and one of the very first things that I did was ask Bill Nielsen to be the board chair. Bill embodies integrity in so many ways, and he's had a huge impact in my life, and I know that's the case for many of the board members as well.
Oh, it was invigorating to know Bill. He would energize any room he came into.
There are a lot of people who talk about the Page principles, and they are wonderful principles and certainly provide a benchmark for how to work in the profession. Bill really embodied those in the way he actually practiced. I mean, he didn't just talk about the Page principles, he lived the Page principles.
He was one of the most gracious, giving professionals of his time and wanting to ensure that he poured into the next generation of public relations professionals.
And one of the things I personally benefited from is how he sought out young professionals and he encouraged them, he inspired them, and he also inspired them to give back to our profession.
You know, Bill was one of those voices where everyone stopped and listened to what Bill had to say. He was in many ways the embodiment of our North Star at Johnson & Johnson.
He had really high standards of leadership in the field, of integrity, commitment, strategic thinking. But I think more than anything, he understood the role that our profession could play in corporate purpose and responsibility.
He often said, in effect, what if we thought about it this way? That's leadership. Ultimately, Bill was just that, a great leader and a great friend. I miss him deeply, but I'm grateful for having known him.
I love that tribute to Bill. This award event was a passion of Bill's, and this is the first time we've held the event without him as a host and an interviewer. To remember Bill and carry on his legacy, all funds raised from this year's event will benefit a new program we're launching in his name. The Bill Nielsen Impact Through Integrity Endowment will develop evidence-based research, events, and training that set up communications professionals for success in the era of AI and other emerging technologies.
We would like to thank tonight's donors and sponsors for helping us start this endowment. And a special thank you to Edelman for reinforcing the role of integrity in public communication through a platinum sponsorship. And now we're about to start the awards. If you're online, be sure to let us know where you're watching from in the chat. If you're here in the room, snap a photo, let everyone know that you're here. Share your thoughts, start a discussion. You can learn more about the Page Center and our many research, education, and outreach initiatives at pagecenter.psu.edu. Connect on social media or send us a note.
Thank you again for joining us. I hope you enjoy the following discussions and find inspiration in the words of our incredible honorees. As Bill Nielsen used to say, the promise of integrity is fulfilled when we use our abilities to uphold the values we stand for. It's a promise too big to fail. Now let's start the show. Here is Page Center Advisory Board member and APCO Worldwide founder, Marjorie Krause.
Hello, everybody. I'm Marjorie Krause. I'm the founder and executive chair of APCO, and I'm here today in a different capacity. I have the great honor today of acknowledging Kelli Parsons as the winner for the Larry Foster Award for the Page Center. And I'm here as a trustee of the Page Center, of the Board of Advisors anyway. And I wanted to acknowledge that this award is for integrity in public communications, and it honors distinguished careers and leaders who exemplify ethical leadership, trust building, and sustained commitment to truth in public communications. And frankly, I can't think of anybody better for this award. It's named in recognition of Larry Foster, the founding director of the Arthur W. Page Center for Integrity in Public Communications. And Kelli, congratulations from all of us. We'd love to hear a few words from you.
Marjorie, thank you so very much. I am deeply honored by this recognition. Congratulations to my fellow honorees. Thank you to the board and to the Page Center, especially for your commitment to integrity in public communication. In a very complex operating environment, I think there's never been a more important time to communicate with courage, with conviction, with compassion, and always with integrity as the bedrock. To be recognized for that purpose is indeed very humbling, and I'm so appreciative. So again, thank you, Marjorie.
So Kelli, I think a lot of the people listening and watching this today are very concerned about the breakdown in public trust and communications. And I just wondered if you could speak to a little bit about your perspective for the companies you've worked with over the years about why people think this is important and what the current situation, what problems the current situation has brought upon us.
Well, Marjorie, I think, in an environment of eroded trust, one of the key questions is really, well, what can we do about it? How can we help to restore, to build trust? That has been central, I know, to your career and to mine. And I believe there are a few principles that I've learned along the way and that I think I hold personally to be true as well. I think first is to show respect for differences. To listen before we assert, to find balance among conflicting interests. And I just so deeply believe in the power of engagement, particularly engaging with people with whom we may have differences, where we may hold opposing views. I think back to my tenure at Fannie Mae in Washington, D.C. during the financial crisis, where we utilized engagement actually as a crisis management tool. I remember the days when we were subject to protests outside our headquarters. The protesters were deeply concerned about the foreclosure crisis. We respected, of course, their right to protest, and their anger was absolutely understandable. But we needed to find a constructive way forward. We needed to rebuild trust among individuals and within our institution. And so in the case of the protest, I reflect back on a decision we made to engage directly with the protesters, on one occasion to ask them to select a representative to come inside and to meet with us, to share their story, share their concerns, their frustrations, and very importantly, get important information that could help solve the problem. We had programs, for example, that would help homeowners avoid foreclosure if they would only act more quickly. And so that was a lesson to me to be willing to engage. And by engaging, we can find substantive solutions, but also build trust in one another along the way.
So, Kelli, we've had a lot of questions come in from people who are in the audience, and I just wanted to share a couple of them. And one of them was about mentors and what influenced you to have a career that took you in this direction and that recognizes you as a leader when it comes to the questions of trust and integrity in communication. So can you talk about, this was actually from Tom Martin, from who we both know very well. So can you talk about who some of your most important mentors have been?
Well, Tom is certainly a dear industry colleague and a mentor to many, including me. I think of Tom's question causes me to think back actually, though, to my own childhood. I grew up on a family farm, and that strongly influenced who I am today. I was blessed with the best parents, and they taught me to be a problem solver, to be dependable, to prioritize others. Often those lessons seem to come in the form of a fence that needed fixing, even when you didn't have the right tools, or livestock that needed to be fed on a bitter cold morning, or a neighbor who needed to be helped when you had a full agenda. And so I owe a great debt of gratitude to my childhood farming community, actually, for instilling those types of lessons in me by being hands-on mentors, both my family and my community as I was growing up. And then as an adult, and then now as a leader, I really strive to ensure that I put people in the very best position to excel, and to be a person who is willing to sponsor and speak up for someone and give them stretch opportunities, because I think people really amaze us with their potential and their capabilities when we believe in them, sometimes even more than they may believe in themselves.
So in this era, when people are questioning the value of college education and how it relates to the fields that they're in, we have a question from Ball State University from one of the faculty members, Ms. Zhang, about in this area of low trust. How do you highlight the value of a college degree in journalism and strategic communications?
Well, I think that it begins with the qualities that one can apply to the workforce. And that is learning and exhibiting critical thinking, to be curious about the world around us, to always be eager to learn, not only as college students, but as lifelong learners, to work well in teams, and to also think about as an individual, really what is my highest and best use for my company, for my community. I borrow that principle from Ruth Porat at Google, who often references it, and it's an approach that I utilize within my own teams, is ensuring that we help everyone identify their highest and best use and then apply that to the team's goal. And I think that can be true in higher education as well, to have clarity around what we're seeking to achieve, and then to work together to ensure that we produce graduates who are ready for an ever-changing world and who are ready to adapt to change, not just adapt, but embrace change, and learn to contribute both individually and as a team member.
So it's interesting to talk about how things change and how we look forward, because a bunch of these questions are about AI, as one might expect at this point. And so, I think I would say, if I could consolidate some of them, I would say, we've done this for a long time without AI. How does AI change things? And are you concerned about where this takes us for the future?
Well, I think we need to embrace emerging technologies, and we have an opportunity to move from the fear of AI to its promise, and that enables each of us to be learners. What I think we're now is at 5 or 6 generations in a workforce, and AI is something that we can all learn together and apply to making us even more effective. So I think we're at a tipping point, and that tipping point causes me to want to be optimistic and say that we should embrace the technology. We should find out how we can realize its promise. I do think it's an era in which also we need to have good governance and ensure that we utilize AI responsibly, whether it's in our classrooms or it's in the workforce or within our communities, and just ensure that we utilize technology alongside us to optimize, but certainly never to replace what makes us all uniquely human.
Yeah, I heard somebody express it this way recently, and that is that the people who, because everyone's worried about job loss, who should be the most worried, the people who don't know how to use AI, that we have to figure out how it becomes our partner and our aid and not how it overtakes us. And so I think that's really good advice for the students who are listening, and given your own experience. I thought your whole career has been, from our perspective, and I'm sure that's why the award is there, is really looking at you as somebody who's been recognized as just somebody who brings, innovation, operational excellence to the field. And I just wondered what advice you might have for all those people listening in, especially the students who are trying to take this forward and someday want to be a Kelli Parsons.
Well, that's very kind, Marjorie. I would say to embrace change, because I think the common thread of my career really has been transformation and large-scale change events. And we live in a world where change is the constant. And I think there are a few principles that can help us succeed in uncertainty among uncertainty. I think one of those is to ensure that we align ourselves around a clear mission with actionable goals attached to it. It's to set a vision for the future, and in setting that vision, I believe we as leaders have to be able to articulate not only what will change, but also what won't change. And often what will not change can be great relief to our team members, and especially when the things that won't change are our values, such as integrity, which of course is the core of our discussion today. I mentioned highest and best use earlier because I do think that if we can cultivate commitment around where individuals can contribute to a greater good, it helps us all be able to adapt to an ever-changing world that we live in. And I guess I would summarize that by saying that the skills that are needed are certainly strategic, and of course they're operational. But I believe so much of it really comes down to mindset also. And again, having a growth mindset and being a person who seeks to cultivate their own emotional intelligence as well.
So you talked about having a mindset. I think one of the challenges today, too, is the globalization of the world. And I just wondered how you see the global perspective fitting into all of this, and how much we can look at national versus global opportunities as we think about how we govern our field, how we think about sharing our principles and our values, and how those carry us forward.
Well, Marjorie, I'm certain that you could teach a master class in this. You've built an amazing global business through the course of your career. I've had the privilege to be a client, to work alongside you, advising clients through the years, and to work with as an in-house CCO with many multinational global companies. And the lessons that I have learned from all of that, again, is to understand and respect differences. Certainly, we live in an era in which there is great conflict between globalization and nationalism. And I won't pretend to know the answer to that, but I do think that so much of it in business and in society does start with respect and with ensuring that we operate from a position of high integrity first, and then seek to find common ground.
Yeah, I think that, what I've learned over the years too is that people are people. And I think if you can relate to people in terms of your own, what's important to you and how you see those principles, it does create some contagious effort. So I think, one of the things you exemplify in all of this is the leadership. And I think people look to the top to take cues. And so I think it's really important that we recognize that you bring what you bring. And I don't know how you see leadership for the future. Do you see any changes that need to happen? Do you, you just took over a CEO in a brand new position. What are you bringing from your past to make sure that the values that you think are important are put forward as you do your new job?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak to that. I'm about 6 weeks in, so very fresh in my new role. And I'm seeking to ensure that my team understands that, of course, we will work in a high integrity first environment. And I have found that at Avoq. And it's one of the things that has really drawn me to the firm is the quality of the people, both as professionals, but also as human beings. And I believe as a leader of this team or any other, it's my responsibility to model integrity, but also to model optimism. In these difficult days, it can be easy to lose focus. But if we are optimistic, I think that too can be contagious. And I'm seeking to bring energy and optimism. And then ultimately, of course, our goal is to be our clients' most trusted, strategic, and creative partner. And then internally, which I think is just as important, it's to one another as colleagues to be our colleagues' most trusted teammate. And I believe that if we chart that course, both in our firm, but much more broadly across our profession, we have the opportunity to have significant influence and do good in both business and in society.
Well, I know that from my point of view, Kelli, I think you exemplify all of that. And I particularly think that finding joy in our work is important. So I love the optimism you bring to this, especially at a time when we're all being challenged. We're almost out of time, but I just wondered if you had any other messages you wanted to convey to this assembled group that is here because we believe in the same principles.
Well, I mean, I think it would be simply to say, of course, I'm full of gratitude again for this recognition. But as I think of us as a collective, we have all been, in my view, blessed with the opportunity to have remarkable experiences throughout our careers. And at the center of those experiences, at least for me, have been amazing people and continue to be. And to me, it is really all about the people. I'm so very proud to have been a small part of the success of my team members through my career. More than 25 of them have gone on to be CCOs or founders or CEOs of communication agencies. And to me, that's probably definitely my proudest career achievement so far. And being recognized, with a peer set that includes people like you, Marjorie, and so many colleagues that I have had the honor to work alongside and learn from through the years, just makes this evening even more special for me. And your willingness to commit your time to chatting with me and to being the person who was able to award me with this distinction means a lot to me. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that, Kelli, because I figure it's my honor to be able to do this. And I think that one of the great things about this profession for everybody who's listening is the fact that we can be competitors at times, but always colleagues and always respectful of each other. And hopefully that's an example for other people. So it's my great honor. I'm so proud of you. I think your whole experience, both in the corporate sector and in the agency world, is a model for all of us. I congratulate you again and thank you for the conversation.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sandra Clark. I'm the CEO of StoryCorps and a member of the Page Center Advisory Board. It's my pleasure to honor the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, with the 2026 Larry Foster Award for Integrity and Public Communication. A little about Jeffrey. Jeffrey was named editor-in-chief of The Atlantic in 2016 after joining the publication as a national correspondent in 2007. During his editorship, The Atlantic has set new audience and subscription records, won its first ever Pulitzer Prize, 3 to be exact, and numerous national magazine awards for general excellence from the American Society of Magazine Editors, the top award in the industry. Jeffrey is also the moderator of Washington Week with The Atlantic on PBS. Before joining The Atlantic, Jeffrey served as the Middle East correspondent and then the Washington correspondent for The New Yorker. Early in his career, he was a writer for the New York Times Magazine, and he began his career as a police reporter for the Washington Post. Jeffrey is the author of Prisoners, The Story of Friendship and Terror, and On Heroism, McCain, Milley, Mattis, and the Cowardice of Donald Trump. Jeffrey, it's my honor to give this award to you and welcome you to the distinguished group of Larry Foster Awards recipients.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sandy. That's very, very kind. It's obviously a great honor. I should thank the Page Center for this and the awards committee and the family of Larry Foster. It's he's a very, very rare figure. I'm old enough to remember some of the crises that he dealt with, and he was a very rare figure, especially these days, because he was totally committed to honesty and transparency and forthrightness, and we obviously don't have a ton of that in our society right now. If I may just say a word about what we're doing at the Atlantic, and I know we're going to have a conversation in a second, but I think what we're trying to do is, and I think this is true for our fellow award recipients from the Page Center, we're trying to put as much truth into the universe as we can. That sounds highfalutin, but it's also sincere. And what we're trying to do is build a shared reality based on empiricism and observable truth. We do this without recognition, but it's a pleasure and an honor to get this kind of recognition. We recognize that we live in dangerous and uncertain times. But what I tell everyone, and maybe we could talk about this for a minute, what I tell everybody on my own staff and my friends in journalism, that this is a huge moment for journalistic opportunity. And what I mean by that is we can do things today that we could tell our grandchildren about. We may not win every battle for the truth, but we gotta fight hard. And living up to that mission is very important to me. Trying to live up to that, we fail like anything, but we try hard. And to get this recognition is a very kind thing. So thank you very much, Sandy, and to everyone.
No, thank you, Jeffrey. Yes, and we'll talk about a number of those topics because it is certainly top of mind, not just for the Page Center, but also for many of the attendees who have submitted questions to us. Foundational journalism, I'll just pick up where you left off, is holding the powerful to account. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to ask, how do you think that's going? And by the way, there's a question from Pat.
It's not going so great, is it now?
Yeah, I figured we'd start there.
Yeah.
Pat Maloney from Head Start asked, do you believe freedom of the press will prevail given the current political situation and censorship by some networks? So have at it.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I always object to, and maybe this is probably the subject of seminars at the Page Center, but I always object to this, to the designation of the media. You hear people complain about the media does this, the media does that. To me, that's as logical as, driving a Toyota and having it break down and blaming the Ford Motor Company for the breakdown. You know what I mean? There's a bunch of different media out there, and some people are doing well, and some people and people do very, very different things within the framework of the media. I think some people are doing fine. Those are the people who have North Star goals of serving their readers, of trying to be truthful and fair and honest as they can. Again, we make mistakes all the time in our industry. Recognizing those mistakes is important. Even when people use those corrections to then use them against us. Like, I think we just have to maintain our standards no matter what. I really do believe, a friend of mine always says this, that the truth bats last. The truth, you can't surmount the truth forever, right? I am worried now with the distortions that social media bring into the global discourse, the speed and the sort of the race to the bottom, and then you add in AI and all of the distortions that AI can build into sort of the wide scale fakery that we're worried about seeing. I worry about the truth's ability to win in this kind of situation. I also believe that it's not like we have a choice. You can either give up or you don't give up, and we just don't give up. You keep having to stand up for what I don't want to sound again like full of it or anything, but like just you gotta try hard to be as good as you can be at your job, even and especially in circumstances where there's so many players in society who just are not on the level anymore.
Mhm. And do you have any advice, because in reality, for your average person, for anyone who's trying to make any sense out of the information that's coming to them daily, do you have any advice on not just what we as practitioners can do, but also what listeners and viewers can do to cut through misinformation? Because, as you said, it's a big media mosh pit, and sometimes people can't tell those who are finding stories with rigor and those who are just personalities talking, calling themselves journalists.
Well, calling out the fakery when you see it, learning how to spot things that are fake or that are not honest is very important. And calling it out, and also educating your friends and neighbors and family and colleagues, and just sort of warning them about what's out there, and explaining that the journalism that you should follow doesn't have to be perfect. It can't be perfect,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to sort of judge people on what their intentions are. The second thing is very practical, which is you got to put your money where your mouth is, and you've got to support institutions that you believe are doing a good job covering the world fairly and completely. But there are things you can do. I mean, one of the things you can do is train your children to care about the wider world, and to understand that citizenship is an active thing, and that it will wither. Look, my line to everyone is, we're going to do this the hard way, or we're going to do this the easy way. Right now, we seem to be heading in the hard way, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to
Mm-hmm.
restore democracy and restore transparency and accountability, and take a stronger stance against corruption. We're going to learn the hard way that where we're at now isn't a good thing, or we can just sort of recognize from our own history that these are values that are worth defending.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think your the spirit of being undeterred is also important, because
Oh
there's a
yeah,
lot.
never giving up. Yeah.
Yeah, that can overwhelm us. You mentioned AI, and how should journalists and communicators, be thinking about, I think, both the best use and at the same time ethical safeguards. And I mean, we have to admit, right, that AI is being used from the highest levels in government right now to distort information. And then, what are the biggest opportunities, in terms of disinformation? This is a question from Ann Rosnick from the Baldwin Group.
Well, I'm not a Luddite. I mean, I'm talking to a Penn State group. You'll understand what I'm saying here. There are certain attractions to the Amish lifestyle. I would like to live in a community without smartphones.
Yeah.
And I can do carpentry. There's something very attractive about that. But I'm not a Luddite, especially when it comes to the use of technology tools in journalism. There are things that we're going to be able to do, taking vast quantities of information and having LLMs, having AI crunch that data and try to discern its meaning and discern patterns. Those are important things. I always say that The Atlantic is a magazine made by humans for humans. I won't countenance any kind of fake AI stories published in a magazine. I mean, if it happens, God forbid, we'll put an end to it. I want human beings to run this from the beginning to the end. That said, just to go back to this point, we are entering a phase, just from a journalist perspective, where you give me 2 million pages of documents about a certain subject. I don't have the interns or the time to go through every page. But if there's a machine that can read that and honestly kick back to me a summary of what it says and what the data means, that's an advantage. That's a force multiplier for journalism. So we have to walk a line, right? We're not going to have these machines do the writing or the thinking for the human. And they're certainly not going to do the reporting for the human. But we can use them in certain ways, and smart organizations will figure out. It's probably a narrow path, but it's also a pretty righteous path to me. But I don't know. Every day brings some new ridiculous challenge, and all I can say is that I don't think you can remove the human from the journalism making process without having hugely terrible effects.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I do remember, though, when digital first came on the scene, and journalists were particularly resistant and thought it would ruin the reputation of the organization if they shared any of their content on social. So, there are lessons to be learned. It's hard to believe, but it's been almost a year since Signalgate, right? And your accidental war room chat invite. So much has happened since then. Can you talk a little about what were the immediate after effects for you? And do they continue to reverberate? And also, Steve Barrett from Haymarket Media asks, where's the line between using and not using information in your reporting that you obtain through accidental or other reporting techniques?
Now, that's a big subject. I'm a little bit surprised. I'm not that surprised, but I'm a little bit surprised that there have been no consequences for members of the administration who use this unauthorized, publicly available app. And then obviously we're talking to the editor of the Atlantic and didn't even know it. I mean, and I've said this, and there's general agreement on this point, is that if you're one of the 3 million people who works for the Defense Department, either in uniform or as a civilian, and you had done anything like what Pete Hegseth had done, right, put into a publicly available messaging app information about an upcoming military strike, I mean, there'll be a court martial in your future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So I have two closing questions for you. One is from Jackie Jones, who's on the Morgan State faculty. And she asks, what advice do you have for young journalists facing major ethical issues on the job?
I mean, the advice is the same advice you'd give to any, I mean, it's like a cliche to say, do the right thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's that expression? Tell the truth, because then you never have to remember your lies, right? Always tell the truth. Like just tell people the truth, for one thing. But understand, this is what I try to communicate and I try to live imperfectly, but I do try to live it. It's, what's your mission? Understand what your personal and professional mission is. Carry out that mission. If the thing that, sometimes I joke around when somebody comes in my office or finds me in the hallway and says, Jeff, I have an ethics question for you. Do you think it's okay? And I always go, no. Like, if you're already asking me, so what do you think? You think it's okay? No, the answer is probably no. Yeah, you know what I mean? But the thing from a journal, I mean, you said that the Morgan State person was on the journalism.
Yes, the faculty, Morgan State faculty.
Here's an easy one. Don't ever give in to power. Don't ever be intimidated. If the truth is on your side, the truth is on your side. And always understand that the job that you're doing is not a job, it's actually a mission. And you didn't go into this. I mean, I wish everybody in journalism make a lot of money, but you don't go into this to make money. Mm-hmm. In a different world, journalists would be paid more, but it's not about your job. It's not about your career. It's not about the money. It's about fulfilling the mission as you understand the ethical mission. And if you when something is not aligning with your mission, if you're not a sociopath, I always joke, I'm sure I'm not the first one to say this. I always joke that the hard thing for journalism business to do is not to stay in business. The hard thing for a journalism business to do is to stay in journalism. Mm. So you have to just remember why you exist and withstand all the pressures that are trying to impinge on the mission.
Yeah, yeah. Well said. And I'll close. You may have already answered this question, but I wanted to close with a question from Sophia Caruso, who's a Penn State student. She's asked, what value is the most important to you?
Oh, Sophia, with a possible question. One value? Students ask the best questions.
Yes, they do.
Straightforwardness. We don't have that. Every day is a fight against euphemism and lying and self-interest and gaslighting these days more than ever. Maybe because there's just so much communication and so much bad communication. I just would, I just think being straightforward, and trying to tell the truth as best as you understand it, and being willing to accept that some people might not like it or you, but being straightforward and fair in your assessment of yourself and the world around you. To me, I think it's kind of a baseline. And straightforwardness also includes, I mean, I think, we have a problem in this country that's deeper than politics, right? We have a problem. We have the alienation of affection, right? Americans, I'm just talking about this in the American context.
Yeah.
Country's not going to work if Americans don't like each other. You can disagree with Americans. You can disagree with them about politics. You can disagree with each other about anything. But we're not each other's enemies. And so treating people with courtesy and respect. I'll tell you what value is really important right now. It's self-restraint. And we don't have politicians now who exhibit self-restraint. Everybody's acting out on Twitter. Everybody's acting out on Instagram. It's like self-restraint. Just be mature, and you don't have to say everything that's on your mind.
Yeah.
Right. Think about the damage that it does when you just say something that's crazy. Your First Amendment right. It's your First Amendment right. And say anything you want.
Yeah.
Sometimes just actually control yourself. And understand that there's also a tomorrow, and that there's also the immutable fact that we all live together in the same country, and we got to make this work, because the alternative is too terrible to contemplate. So self-restraint is a good one.
Yeah, that is. Well, Jeffrey, thank you for this really wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
And once again, congratulations.
No, I appreciate it. It's a great honor. I'm really moved by it, and I thank you very, very much.
Well, you certainly live out the values every day of the Larry Foster ethic, and
it's nice of you.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Page Center intern Grace Matthews, and I'm here at the Belisario Media Center watching the awards with Public Relations Senior Sydney Waldner. Sydney, we're about halfway through the awards. What has been your biggest takeaway so far?
Well, I really enjoyed hearing Kelli talk about some of her recommendations for those moving into their professional careers soon, as that's going to be my next step. She mentioned that when going into this field, she recommends students really embrace change and are adaptable, while also keeping their values and integrity at the center of all the decisions they make. So that's something that I'm really going to take with me into this next chapter.
Definitely. Thank you. So let's get right back into the show. I'm going to give it to former CCO of Johnson & Johnson and Page Center Advisory Board Chair, Michael Sneed.
Well, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Sneed, and I serve as the Vice Chair of the Page Center Advisory Board. And it's my pleasure to honor a member of the faculty of Harvard Business School and the former Chairman and CEO of Best Buy, Hubert Joly, with a 2026 Larry Foster Award for Integrity in Public Communication. At Harvard, Hubert is the co-leader of a portfolio of programs intended to support the growth of CEOs and senior executives at the world's foremost corporations. Hubert is also a member of the board of directors of Johnson & Johnson and S&P Global. He's a member of the International Advisory Board of HEC Paris and a trustee of the New York Public Library. Hubert has been recognized as one of the top 100 CEOs in the world by the Harvard Business Review, one of the top 30 CEOs in the world by Barron's, and one of the top 10 CEOs in the United States by Glassdoor. Hubert is also the author of the best-selling book, The Heart of Business: Leadership Principles for the Next Era of Capitalism. Hubert, welcome to our conversation, and congratulations on your award.
Well, Michael, it's right here, right? It's an incredible honor to be recognized by the Page Center, of course, which stands for integrity and everything it stands for. And then, of course, having this conversation with you, you mentioned I'm on the board of Johnson & Johnson. That's how we got to know each other. And my God, Johnson & Johnson, what an incredible company with a credo, its principles. It's really focused on doing the right thing in the world. And so I'm deeply honored and grateful. So thank you, Michael.
Well, thank you for joining us. And as you said, we're going to just have a conversation here for the next 10, 15 minutes. And I wanted to start with the book, Hubert, because it's a big title, Leadership Principles for the Next Era of Capitalism. Some big words there. And clearly you've put some of your principles to work. So first of all, can you speak about some of those principles? And then second, how did you deploy them in the turnaround at Best Buy?
Well, you're so kind, Michael. So I published this book in 2021 because I wanted to share what I had learned over my long career in business. And one of the things that I've learned is that following the years of shareholder primacy and the Jack Welch model of leadership, I felt we needed a refoundation of business around the pursuit of a higher purpose, the idea of putting people at the center, embracing all stakeholders, and treating profit as an outcome, but not the ultimate goal of business.
Yes.
And now sometimes people oppose purpose and performance. I think that purpose and people is a great way to unleash extraordinary levels of performance. And again, that's something that you and I have in common from the J&J in our world. And frankly, the turnaround and resurgence of Best Buy was the application of these principles. At the time, so I joined Best Buy as the CEO in 2012, and at a time when everybody thought we were going to die. And instead of what I was hearing from analysts and investors, cut, the usual recipe for turnarounds, fire a lot of people. We employed a very people-centric approach to the turnaround. I started my journey at Best Buy listening to the frontliners, spending time working in stores, and frankly, they had all of the answers, Michael. And in many ways, my job was super easy: show up in the stores, ask the question, what's working, what's not working, what do you need? Listen, take notes, and do as I was told. And then after the turnaround, when we focused on how can we grow the company and how do we define the kind of company we'd like to become, defining a higher purpose was really transformational. We said we're not just a retailer, we're a company that's here to enrich lives through technology. And we managed to define the implications of that on our strategy and our culture, and embarked 100,000 people in the journey, truly unleashing the human magic of 100,000 people in service of our purpose. And what I've learned so much along the way, Michael, that this was a great way to create extraordinary levels of performance. And our share price, because you do care about the share price if you're a public company, went from $11 to about $100 as part of that journey. So that's why I wrote the book. I wanted to share what I had learned in this journey, because I think that the world need this refoundation of business around purpose and people.
Well, they're clearly tremendous principles. But you've been around long enough. I've been around to know it's one thing to espouse these principles. It's another thing to hold fast to them when they're tested. Is there a time when those principles were tested and you found yourself having to really double down on them?
Yeah, and part of the reason why I wrote the book is that because so many of us believe it's the right thing to do, but as you mentioned, it is really hard to do. So I wanted to lay out a lot of the specifics and the examples and the tools to be able to get this done. The perhaps the most defining moment, Michael, was at the beginning of the journey.
Yeah.
Instead of so the investor had told me, "You're going to have to close a lot of stores and fire a lot of people." So we looked, and all of the stores were profitable. So closing stores didn't seem like a great idea, and firing a lot of people implied that people were the problem. I thought that they would be the source of the solution. So the approach, as I mentioned, was listening to the frontliners. Start with people. Listen to the frontliners. Rebuild the management team, the leadership team. And then another thing I learned from a client when I was at McKinsey is that you treat headcount reduction as a last resort. Your turnaround, priority number one is grow the top line. It's amazing what revenue growth can do.
Yes.
Of course, we had to cut costs. We took about $2 billion of cost out, but we focused first on what I call non-salary expenses, which is all of the elements of the cost structure that have nothing to do with people.
Yeah.
And out of the $2 billion, there was about 70% of the cost reduction that was not people related. And then we treat headcount reduction as a last resort. And my experience is that this works. And so you always should listen to the shareholders and so forth, but you should do the right thing, not the popular thing or the convenient thing. And so the beginning of the turnaround was very much a defining moment to your question.
Yeah, no doubt, and certainly they've stood the test of time. So you're a former CEO, now you're a senior lecturer at Harvard, and I'm curious, Hubert, how do you provide perspective to your students on the value of these principles?
Oh, so that's my passion, right? My purpose in life, Michael, is to unleash human magic, right? In myself and my 5 adorable granddaughters, but also in the next generation of leaders. So the programs I lead at the school, in particular, whether it's in the MBA program or with senior executives, the first thing is we invite them to deeply reflect on who they are and who they want to be as a leader and their purpose in life. I firmly believe that to be an effective business leader, you need to first be an effective leader of yourself.
Yes.
So we invite them to reflect on their life story, the crucible moment that shaped them, their values, their principles, and their purpose in life. So I co-lead the new CEO workshop at the school. This is a great program. I attended it when I first became CEO. It's been going for more than 30 years. One of the things we ask them to do is, the new CEOs, is we ask them to write down their retirement speech. Which means, how do you want to be remembered?
Yes.
When it's all done? So I think that's the starting point, is with the personal side of leadership. Because then if you've taken care of that, then it's much easier. It's a strong foundation to then define how you want to lead the organization in service of what, and be a principled leader. So I think that it's leadership from the inside out, in a sense.
Yeah, of course, you're speaking my language. I love that. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of younger people who, today, you hear stories that the younger people have less trust in corporations and institutions and the media. And so, how do you convince them otherwise when you're inside these classrooms that, they got to stick with it because it's going to pay off?
Well, the first thing I would say, I had a wonderful session in January with a section of the first year of the MBA program, so about 92 students. And the topic of the course was purpose of the firm. Why do firms exist? What are their unique powers in solving, important problems in the world? What are their limitations? But also, if the mission of the school is to help educate leaders who make a difference in the world, what does that mean to you as a leader, as a future leader? You're at the minimum, you're a leader of your life, right? What does that mean to you to make a difference in the world? And so that's this self-reflection that is so important. And I was moved, the quality, the human qualities of these students is just extraordinary. The depth of their reflection. And then the reflection is, obviously, Michael, we live in an uncertain, chaotic, challenging world, right?
Yes.
The question is this, right? Does the world more than ever need great leaders? In the great state of Minnesota,
yes.
In the great state of Minnesota, we would say, "You betcha," right? That's how we would answer that. And so, I think business is a great platform. And you've lived it at Johnson & Johnson, Michael, right? It's a great platform to make a positive difference in the world. So for individuals who care about making a difference in the world, business is why is that in a divided world where there's a growing insularity and division and divisiveness? Businesses can be an oasis for civility. where we
Yes.
can bring together people from different creed, different perspectives. In the U.S., you have Dems and Republicans. We can bring them together in service of a higher purpose, and that's an incredible privilege to be able to do this.
It is, and as you've seen, Hubert, in the recent years, corporations have sometimes shied away from having public statements, or people have said, "Hey, you should be staying in your lane," and But I think you're talking about a different approach in terms of a responsibility in some ways that corporations have that others don't. Is that true?
And of course, as a CEO, as a business leader, you cannot be confused. You're not an elected official. You're not in charge of the administration. So don't be confused. But you have a very important role to play. At the helm of a large organization. Best Buy was about 100,000 people. You impact communities. You impact the vendors. You impact families. So it's a big responsibility. You have to be clear about the topics that you get engaged in. So any topic that's connected to your purpose as a company,
Yes.
and connected to that's impacting your stakeholders, starting with your employees and their families and the communities. That's something that's dear to your heart. Now, I think there was a time, certainly 10 years ago, where it was easy and popular among CEOs to speak up on certain matters. Now, speaking is easy. Doing is harder.
Yes.
And it's what I learned from my mother, right? Instead of criticizing this or this or that, why don't you, take care of your life and but I think that leaders I think role modeling is super important. And when we go through a moment of crisis, an important reflection question is when the crisis is over, and I look back and other people will look back and how I led, how do I want to be remembered? For what do I want to be remembered? For taking the easy route, the convenient route, or for taking care of others? And I think that, one of the things I've learned, Michael, over the years is when I was growing up, I thought that being smart was essential for leaders. And that being the smartest person in the room, or trying to be, would bring me forward. I've learned since then, over time, and that you see all of the scars on my face, right? So I've learned over the years that I needed to lead with all of my body parts, not just the brain, but also the heart, the soul, the guts, the ears, the eyes. And that is what's needed to make to be an effective leader today. You need all of these body parts to be an effective leader.
Yeah, no, well said. And I think if you're in business long enough, you realize that the smartest people in the room generally aren't the ones that are most successful. Indeed. So I want to turn to the topic of the day in many companies, which is around AI. And, is it going to be the end of life as we know it? Is it going to be a tool? So just trying to understand from your perspective, Hubert, the opportunities, because there's wonderful opportunities, but also some of the watchouts as you look to deploy, and you consult with companies who are looking to deploy AI.
Yeah, so of course, when you're teaching, you have to learn constantly. So I'm spending a lot of time, like everybody else, on these topics. Of course, I'm not leading a company, but I'm doing case studies, I'm doing research, and I'm working with CEOs and great leaders. So I'm learning a lot from that. And it's fascinating, Michael, as has been the case in the past with certain new technology, there's a risk of almost having a cult-like adoration for a new technology, a shiny object. I don't think that's healthy. Clearly, AI and Gen AI in particular is particularly powerful. But you have to go back to basic ideas, which is it's always technology is always in service of something. So will the technology help you do a better job of accomplishing or pursuing your purpose as a company?
Right.
Will it help you better serve the needs of customers in a more effective? Will it help you grow your company? If it's just cost cutting, it's not fascinating. So, efficiency is important, but will help you move things forward. How will it impact people, both within the company and in particular frontliners, as well as people at your customers. And again, if it's, I think that a response, so CEOs and leaders, we have to be providers, of course, of realism, but also hope, right? And in particular, in these relatively dark times, hope is really important. So the big responsibility of, if a CEO spreads the news and say, half of you are going to be gone and so forth, back to my cut discussion about it, it's not helpful. My responsibility as a CEO is to help create as many growth opportunities for the company as possible, and help support, the employees in the journey of adapting to a new world, so that, even with productivity improvements, perhaps, we'll have 50% more revenue with the same headcount, and a workforce that's really adapted to this new environment. The last thing I would say, I've always been influenced by the social doctrine of the church and around this idea of the preferential option for the poor. As you lead an organization, try to consider the poorest people, so frontliners, people who are less equipped, and have I think that a lesson I'm learning from working with other CEOs is that in this world of AI, we're going to need more humanity, more empathy, right, more humility. Than ever before, and as opposed to less. So these are some of the things I'm learning. But it's an exciting time. I mean, the AI may help us solve or make progress in solving some of the world's biggest problems. Again, in pharma, the acceleration of research, through AI is an exciting opportunity. So, but don't fall in love with it. It's how does it help you?
It's a tool. It's a powerful tool, but it's a tool.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hubert, we're winding up here, and I have one last question. It relates a little bit to what you said, which is, what kind of leader must one be in 2026 that's different than a leader in 1996? So 30-year span. What's the big difference? Because you've been a leader over those 30 years.
I think that first you have to take stock of the fact that the world is changing, right? And great leadership is always adapted to the times, and so we are in a more uncertain, more chaotic, more fractured environment. That means for me that and Satya Nadella has talked about this, right? This is not the times of the know-it-alls. This is the time of the learn-it-alls, and so humility is really important. At Best Buy, we had crafted, some leadership principles, expectations for leaders, and I think they're incredibly relevant today. And there was 5 of them, and we said, I call them the 5 B's of purposeful leadership. Number 1, you have to be clear about your own purpose and curious about the purpose of people around you and how it connects to the work. You have to be clear about your role as a leader, not to, necessarily solve every problem and be the smartest person in the room, but create an environment where others can be successful.
Yes.
You have to be clear about who you serve as a leader. I told the officers at Best Buy, Michael, if you're here to serve yourself or your boss or me as the CEO of the company, I told them, I don't have a problem with that. It's okay. Oh, except you can't work here. We're going to promote you to customer, and we're going to love you up as a customer, right? But if on the other hand, you're here to serve the organization, and in particular, the people on the front line, then we're good. And then number 4 is be values driven. So integrity, that's what we are celebrating today, is super important. And then number 5, have a number of qualities that we've discussed, right? Humility, humanity, empathy, and that's what we said. I think that continues to be relevant today.
Well, Hubert, that is a great way to end. I want to thank you so much for the conversation.
Well, thank you. I mean, what an honor. When I got the news, I was really humbled, and then when I saw it was you, then I said, "Oh my God, this is so cool." So, Michael, thank you.
Well, it's great seeing you again, and much continued success and good health.
Thank you, Michael.
Hello, everyone. My name is Olivia Swigar, and I am a senior broadcast journalism student at the Donald P. Belisario College of Communications at Penn State. I am so honored to be here with Chief White House correspondent and anchor at CNN, Kaitlan Collins, and present her with a 2026 Larry Foster Award for Integrity in Public Communication. On her show, The Source with Kaitlan Collins, Kaitlan chases the facts, asks the tough questions, and connects with her sources so viewers can get the very latest in prime time. Before joining The Source, Kaitlan was the co-anchor and chief correspondent of CNN This Morning. Prior to the launch of the morning show in November of 2022, she served as CNN's chief White House correspondent based in Washington, D.C. Since joining the network in 2017, Kaitlan has broken several stories in her coverage of both the Biden and Trump administrations, including major staff departures and consequential policy decisions. Kaitlan was named to 2024's Time 100 Next list and has been included in Mediaite's annual list of the most influential people in news media since 2018. She was also named to Crain's News Pro's 12 to Watch in TV News in 2019, as well as one of Forbes magazine's 30 Under 30 Media in the same year. In 2023, she was named on Variety's New Power of New York. And here at the Page Center Awards, Kaitlan, I am ecstatic to present you with a Larry Foster Award for Integrity in Public Communication. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Olivia, and thank you for that kind introduction. It's also fun, I'll say, being introduced by someone who is a broadcast journalism student, because I feel like I was just there not that long ago, even though it's been quite a while now. And I just think it's really exciting because there's so many fun things happening in the field of journalism and in broadcast news. A lot of changes, but I think exciting ones, and ones that will only help our audiences going forward. And so it's fun to have someone who's entering this field to introduce me. So thank you for that kind introduction. And I also just want to say thank you to the Penn State Page Center for this award. It really means a lot. And everyone here at CNN is especially excited about it because it is such a legacy award for so many of my colleagues, so many iconic people at CNN, people that I still look up to and follow their journalism methods. And so it's very exciting to be able to also be a recipient for this award. So I'm very grateful for that. And I also just am grateful as, this time for a reporting period. I think journalism is important always, but I think lately, especially amid the war with Iran, CNN, amid many other news outlets, has been showcasing why journalism is so important and how hungry the world is for news and for updates and clarity and context. And we were just talking about this. Everyone's so exhausted and people are working around the clock, but it's such an exciting time to be a reporter because it just really reinforces why what we do is important and why it's important to get it right and to do a really good job delivering the news, because you realize how many people are counting on reliable information in a time when there's so much unreliable information out there. And so I'm excited to receive this award, and I'm excited because I just think it highlights exactly what this award is about. So thank you all for honoring me with this, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for being here. So how did you grow a desire for your passion in journalism, or where did you kind of kickstart your career?
I think I was always a curious person, and I don't think I ever put two and two together that could help me pursue a field in journalism until I was in college. And truly, I had started out as a chemistry major. And so whenever I'm talking to students, including my brother, who's a 22-year-old graduating senior right now, I think a lot of people freak out about, I don't know what I want to do yet. It's not completely clear what my career path is. And I always tell people it's fine, because I started out thinking I was going to be a scientist, and then I became a reporter. But once I switched majors, I really noticed a difference. I enjoyed going to class. I enjoyed learning about journalism and how to conduct interviews, how to frame a story, how to kind of cut through spin that you're getting. And I loved that because I kind of think those were skills that I always liked just having as a kid growing up. And then I could actually find a way to put them to use and to sharpen them and make them better. And so really it was in college, I think. And I had courses in college that also encouraged us to go out and report real stories. I mean, we went out and covered, it wasn't just sitting in a classroom, writing up a story about a prompt that we had. It was actually going out and interviewing people and submitting stories by deadline and having them edited. And that was such a thrill for me, just to have that. I mean, it was terrifying, but it was also a thrill. And so ever since I had changed, I was like, okay, I don't know exactly how I'm going to do this, but this is what I want to do.
Yeah, I went through the same kind of path too. I started at STEM and then worked my way to journalism. And I couldn't be more grateful to be where I am today. So I
I feel like there's a lot of us who did that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I get it. So you not only have a presence at CNN, but on social media as well. But with social media comes, misinformation and everything. So what are some responsibilities you have to take on when you're communicating news online?
That's a really good question, especially for people who are graduating right now. And social media is second nature to so many of them because, I mean, you've grown up with it your whole life. Because I think that some people might think, oh, that could potentially be a bad thing because, social media has so many risks. I view it as actually a good thing. I think that it's a way to reach people who are on different platforms. I think the people who follow me on Instagram are different than the people who follow me on Twitter. They're different than TikTok, than Threads. It's just so many different audiences these days. There's not one shared platform. Maybe Instagram is the closest. But I think it's helpful actually to say, like on Instagram, I'll say I'm having Senator Fetterman on tonight, or we're going to, have this moment from the briefing and I'll share it on Instagram. So many people will see it there that don't always watch cable news at 9 p.m. It's just different audiences. And so I think it's a good thing because it's a good way to reach people where they are to get their news, which is what I think we should be doing. But then I also think one thing that's important and good to keep in mind, I think, for anyone who's graduating or getting into journalism is I treat it with the same kind of editorial standards that I do on TV. I don't say something on Instagram that I wouldn't say in a news report on television or on my show. I think you have to be careful with that. And then I'm also a little less personal on Instagram. I don't always share updates, of my food or whatnot. Sometimes I do. But I treat it a little differently because I think when people go to my Instagram, they expect to get news, not just, life updates of what's happening with me.
Yeah, for sure. I get that. So what do you think is the best way to avoid bias in journalism? Because bias is obviously a huge factor when it comes to reporting and journalism. So what's the best way to avoid that, you think?
Yeah, and I also think it's a misconception that a lot of people have about that all journalists are biased. Sure. That's actually not my experience. I think definitely some are, and you have opinion hosts or people who have left-leaning outlets or right-leaning outlets, which I actually have some experience with from just my first job. But I think that, I have found a lot of people don't have a bias and they really just want to be good reporters and get to the truth. And so one thing I think that helps with that is diversifying your own news sources where you're getting your news from, not just reading one website. I think you should read 6 different websites and look at reports from different angles. I follow a bunch of different voices on Twitter. I like to see what those people have to say. And also I just talk to a bunch of different sources for stories, when I'm reporting something on the administration, say, for example, the Pentagon, I try to talk to people who are actually involved in it to hear their side of the story. Because I think if you don't, and you don't give them an opportunity to say, well, actually, it's coming off like this, but here's what we're doing, then you're missing an angle of the story. And I think that's really important. And so I just think if you talk to a lot of people from both sides of the aisle, I talk to Democrats, Republicans, that is the best way to kind of make sure that you have all perspectives when you're looking at an issue that's important and that people are debating. You want to make sure you're just talking to everyone, because if you just focus on one angle, you're only getting one side of the story.
Mm-hmm. So what are some values that you think that journalists today, experienced or not, whether it's a student journalist or someone who's been in the industry forever, what should they value in their reporting, you think?
That's a good question. I think I've honestly, and this I think applies to anyone, not just a journalism major, but I think hard work is the best thing you can do. I think no matter what fields you're in, you should be willing to try anything, and it's not limit yourself. I think keep an open mind when you're looking at job opportunities or career paths, because there's so many things you could do. And I think that if you work hard, you will be successful. I mean, you have to put in the work. And I know everyone says that and everyone hears that, but it's so true. And it's just a testament to, you want to be, if you're known for being the person who never says no and is always willing to take up opportunities, you'll get more opportunities because people will say, oh, well, Olivia will want to do this or Caitlin will want to do this. So let's just have them do it. And I think by doing that, like I've done so many random opportunities. Like I remember when I started at CNN, the vice president, Mike Pence at the time, was going to Turkey. Like he was flying there and then coming straight back, not spending the night to try to broker a ceasefire. And we had no one who was able to go at the drop of a hat. And I was like, well, I could go. Like, I mean, I have a schedule today, but I don't mind. And so I truly packed a bag. And 2 hours later, I was on a flight to Turkey. And it was great because I got to meet all of the vice president's staff. I met people in Turkey. And like, it was just an opportunity that came to me because I was there and I raised my hand. And so I think just raising your hand and being willing to work hard in any industry will help you be successful.
No, yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice. And that Turkey trip sounds like a really cool experience.
It was insane because we came back the next morning and we were like still wearing the same clothes. Like no one, it was like totally insane.
Yeah, it sounds fun though. So what are some lessons that you've come to learn throughout your career, whether it's regarding, news ethics or trusting in trust within your sources or just anything else that you've come to learn in your career so far?
I think I didn't really learn how to source or to develop sources when I was in college. That was one thing that when I got to CNN, I was like, oh, this is something I need to be able to do. And it sounds obvious, but it really wasn't to me. Like I didn't know how to start a conversation with a source or how to develop a relationship with them. And I think, I had some friends who were like, just treat sources like you treat people. Like they're normal people. They have jobs, they have families. And you want to get information from them, but no one's going to say, oh, here, let me tell you everything I know the first time you speak to them. You have to kind of, build that trust with them to where they know you're not going to burn them. And so learning that and doing that is something that just takes work and you just have to put energy into it. And it's kind of like watering plants. You've got to check in with them all the time, not just when you need them. And so I think that was really helpful. But I think also it does also raise questions of who can you trust, who's a reliable source? Because a lot of people will tell you stuff. It doesn't mean it's true or it's slanted to favor the outcome they'd like to see. And so what you have to do is kind of hear from multiple people about what happened in an event, for an example. And you have to decide how to get the closest to the truth. Who's being the most honest? Who has the less to gain from this? And I think kind of sussing through that it's subjective. It's not just a black and white issue. And so it's something that you just have to kind of develop the longer you're a reporter.
Yeah, for sure. So before we wrap everything up, is there anything that you'd like to share with the students, the young professionals, and just the communicators that are watching us?
Yeah, I think what was most helpful to me and something that I still think about to this day, I was just back home in Alabama, where I went to school last weekend, and someone asked me if I knew this person who is a well-known reporter in my college town. And I said, of course. I said, he was my professor, actually. And this was Aaron Suttles. He was a great journalism professor because we would have to report stories, real stories, like go out in the wild, talk to people, be on deadline. And he would take the time to go through the story with you after to say, here's what could be better. And I'm always I'm not great at something the first time I try it, but I'm really good at improvement. Like I can take a starting point and I can always really improve. But you need good feedback for that. And so I think if you're young, people sometimes want to say, well, they want to come off as experienced or like they know what they're talking about. It's okay if you don't. And I think that you should seek advice from people. And not everyone's going to be an amazing mentor, but find people who are, because you only need 1 or 2 or 3 people. And you'll rely on them, not just when you're 22 to 25. I'm still relying on them now and I'm 33. And so I think finding people who are mentors to you can be really helpful. And a lot of people want to help young students or people who are just breaking into the field, because we've all been there. And so I think making sure you reach out to people and solicit advice and ask questions, people like that. And I think when we're hiring people for my show team, we like people who are more willing to just come and learn. You don't have to know everything, but if you're willing to show up and learn, we value that a lot. And so I think that is actually, that's something that I find is helpful that I didn't really know at 22. I thought I was just act like I knew what I was doing. It's okay if you don't know what you're doing.
Thank God. The journalist in me wants to just keep asking more questions, of course, but unfortunately that is all the time we have. But this was such a wonderful conversation, and I appreciate you speaking with me today. And just overall, thank you, Kaitlan, and congratulations.
Thank you, Olivia. This was a very well conducted interview, and your questions were all on point. So thank you for doing this.
Thanks.
So I'm here with senior PR major, Nora Martin. Nora, what was your biggest takeaway from today?
Thanks, Grace. I really found it insightful to hear from Hubert Joly about his idea of inside-out leadership. He was mentioning how just with today's world, with new emerging technologies, people are really looking to their leaders more than ever. So leading with humility and empathy amid all of these new technologies and complications is really important skill to have as a leader.
Definitely, and it's very relevant to today. So now I'm going to pass it back to Jonathan and Denise for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Grace. To our honorees this year, a special thank you. I hope your Larry Foster Award demonstrates our appreciation for the example that you have set. Thanks to all of you for watching. Please stay connected. Visit the Page Center website for all awards-related content and for more information about center initiatives. A recording of this program will be available. Denise will now conclude the awards with a few thoughts.
Thanks, Jonathan. What an insightful program. Thank you all for watching the 2026 Page Center Awards. I hope these conversations inspire you to reflect and act on the importance of integrity in public communication. Thank you to the board members, Marjorie Krause, Sandra Clark, Michael Sneed, and our first ever student interviewer, Olivia Swigert, for leading powerful, thought-provoking discussions. To all the students here with us in the Media Center, thank you for joining us. Many thanks to our sponsors, whose contributions took on a special purpose this year by supporting the new Bill Nielsen Impact Through Integrity Endowment. I look forward to seeing the great work the Page Center can do to carry on Bill's legacy. An extra special thank you to our platinum sponsor, Edelman, for demonstrating your commitment to integrity. Thanks again for being with us. We hope to see you next year.